Hey everybody, welcome to Hear. Oh, wait. Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick,
And I'm Paul.
and
How's
we're
it going?
talking about the ups and downs, the goods and bads, the morality, the everything angle of whether or not it's right to recast a role, particularly for a character that's going to continue. So you're recasting where an actor has made that character them, let's say, and the difficulty then of deciding whether or not when an actor passes, whether the character, let's say, gets written out or whether or not to recast and continue. So, Paul, there's a few obvious reasons why we're talking about this right now.
Yeah, it seems to be a kind of a more topical kind of question coming up in kind of recent times with a few different characters, which is and the sad passing of their actors, um, which was of recasting. And I know that this question has been also coming up in the sense of any kind of the CGI kind of continuation of that actor in that role kind of thing as well. So, but it's the bigger one of kind of like, do you recast it?
Yeah.
Which goes with a new actor.
Well, the first thing that's come up there, Ryan in the chat says, hello to everybody in chat, by the way, and any technical difficulties, it's all my fault. New PC, new setup, new everything, which is also why we're late. Apologies. It worked okay for Bond. See, Bond is a good example of there's a character that's going to go on ad infinitum, possibly. And it's not a case of someone really passed away. But you're right that you can recast a character. So that's a very good point to bring up early doors in this. And that is that characters are, in some ways, the legacy of the actors who played them. Even if somebody else goes on to play it, you've done your work, you've set your stall out. If people appreciated your work in it, maybe it's nicer that they keep going. And Paul, I'm gonna suggest that maybe the most famous thing going on right now, the confirmation that's happened, is
Hmm.
that Ray Stephenson is going to be replaced by Rory McCann. For anybody who doesn't know, Ray Stephenson was in a Disney Plus TV show called Ahsoka. Um, and Paul, it's not too impolite to the rest of the cast to say he stole the show. Like he was
Yeah,
a lot of people's favorite thing about, and this is personal opinion about a show that I was so excited for, but felt was actually only mediocre in the end. With the exception of him, I thought he was exceptional. I thought the character was compelling because of his performance.
I would agree. Yeah, this character very much stormed the stage on Ahsoka as well, which was a big surprise with the cast that was mentioned, kind of thing. So yeah, it's a big shoes to fill kind of thing because you're talking about a character who was probably not written as a scene stealer kind of character, like was because of his imposing nature and very stoic kind of like morals in the sense of like why
Yeah.
why the character was doing the things, which was great, like really well played.
And,
Um,
and he had the intangible. He had the thing that used to just be called cool. He had the Fonz factor. It's like, I don't know exactly everything about we can analyze his portrayal of a character all day long, but there was
yeah,
also that, oh, he's just kind of cool. He was massive, he was imposing, yet he's well groomed, he's sharp, he's honorable, dishonorable, whatever way in a certain scene. He just carried an air that Ray Stevenson brought, which for me, I think you're right, incredibly difficult to recast. Is it wrong to recast? I would say no, because I think this is one of those cases where I think it's actually more respectful to him to not just magically try and remove the character. I think it's more respectful to say, this is what he left. We're going to try and continue it as best as we can in his honor.
yeah, I agree that the kind of that the character was such a fan favorite and such a kind of pinnacle character within the story that it's bad to kind of write him out in some kind of like off screen death, or
Hmm.
they'll have like like I am thinking that they're not going to CGI which goes Stevenson into it.
No.
So but it does so the replacement thing, we agree that yes, this is one of those ones that definitely should have a replacement, because it honors the character and also the actor who came before.
Hmm.
It does beg the question of, should characters die with their actors,
Yeah,
and that's not always a yes, kind of thing. I would say that it's very particular kind of scenarios in which that would be the case, and this is not one of them.
yeah. I think, and we ran a small Twitter poll that I didn't check the results of just before we went live, but I'm pretty sure I give the option of should a character die with the actor? Yes. Should they recast, or is it a case by case basis? And case by case basis was obviously the winner. Quite rightly. And this is a particular case where I have to say, what softens the blow for anybody who would feel uneasy about the idea of Ray being recast, it's actually his friend Rory McCann, famous as the picture shown here for the Hound in Game of Thrones. But the fact that they knew each other and reportedly were friends, I know it doesn't matter. It's show business. This is all about production. It's storytelling. It's what the final story looks like. Actors are vessels for characters, etc. But there is something nice about the fact that they were friends, and that gives the warm and fuzzy back to it a little bit.
Yeah, it gives a element of respect
Yeah,
for the recasting, I think, which is needed in this case, kind of thing. So, and I think that that's one of the elements that definitely suggests whether it should be recast or should it pass with the actors, depending on the respect shown for the character and the actor who brought them to the screen first,
yeah,
kind of thing.
absolutely.
Because I guess with Bond, I think Bond and Batman are established kind of like body hoppers, I guess would probably be a good way to describe them, as in they are retellings and differences and stuff like that. But this is an actual continuation of a character kind of thing. So that's
Yeah.
where the kind of the change for that would be for me.
And I think moving on, there's the other big obvious one that is also in the news right now, and that's Black Panther, T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman. Now, the Ray Stephenson, Rory McCann has been confirmed, so
Hmm.
that's a happening. At the time that Chadwick Boseman passed away, to say that he was the Black Panther, that he was T'Challa, is an understatement. People
Yeah.
say, "Oh, he only had one film." No, he didn't. He had multiple films because he was actually introduced in Civil War, and wasn't just a cameo. He had a significant part in it. He was part of the Infinity War Endgame. The showdown in Wakanda featured in it all. Big deal. Great actor. And at the time, because he passed away and there was going to be a Black Panther 2, Disney Marvel made the decision, okay, we're not recasting. We're not putting T'Challa back on the map here. We're just going to say, gone. That's it. Now, word is that almost 5 years later, there's a chance of a change to that thinking. This will upset some people. It will actually delight others, because at the time there really were two camps of thought in this. And they're the obvious two camps of, no, come on, the character doesn't have to die with the actor. It is more respectful to, you know, live the legacy, bring it on. Or a lot of people saying, no, he's the only T'Challa we should ever have in this incarnation of the MCU at least.
Hmm.
What's your take?
So I have two sides of this coin for me. From a respect and kind of admiration to the actor who brought T'Challa to the screen. Um, Chadwick was amazing. I don't want another one. I don't want someone else to play T'Challa.
Okay.
That's one side of the coin, kind of thing. I do want a Black Panther to reemerge into the MCU as a full thing. I just don't want
T'Challa.
the T'Challa character.
Okay.
And the reason the T'Challa character for me is that they'll have to roll back two plot points in the
Yeah.
MCU, is the funeral scene and essentially the handing off of the mantle to his sister.
Yeah.
Uh, those two things will have to be rolled back. And
But I will say, comic books and mantles can be handed on again, if you know what I mean. So if they really want
yes,
to, they'll find a way. I'll be honest with you, I'm with you in this one. I wouldn't be saying what you're saying if they hadn't added those plot points. If there was nothing in the story, I would have been one of the people to say it's fine to recast T'Challa back then. You know, you can recast Rhodey, then you can recast T'Challa, you can recast. You know, it's been done in multiple movies. I'm just trying to think of other stuff in Marvel, but because of those specific plot points, is there a necessity to have T'Challa come back from the beyond? I'm with you. I don't see it.
Yeah, that's my elements of things. Like I do get so the mantle one definitely can understand that. We've got Bucky and which got Falcon
Yeah,
fighting over the mantle of Captain America
Bucky
essentially.
should win.
Yeah, the only thing is that they haven't established essentially rebirth of characters within the MCU. They have in
Mm,
comic books, that's quite easy, but in um the movie for like universe they haven't, apart
yeah,
from time travel
yeah,
kind of thing, you know.
yeah. Dimension jumping, time travel.
Now, if they want to use the variant system, that's a whole different kettle of fish kind of thing.
Well, if there's any genre that has options, it's this genre. But you're right; it would be starting to set the precedent of we're bringing people back. Although the amount of people that have died and they're not really dead, or they've come back from whatever. But yeah, I think there's a rabbit hole to go down there that's not worth our time because I think us and the viewers at home, they're the two easy scenarios. So the Ray Stephenson Ahsoka scenario, it's easy. There's a
Mhm.
guy with a great performance. After a season one, there's a season two coming. It makes sense, and it's lovely that they're getting his friend. The T'Challa example, once they made the choice the first time round, you got to
Yeah,
stick with it.
yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, like there's an element of respect there to just keep going with the decision that's made and maybe honor the character by reintroducing a new Black Panther,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, Paul, there's a few other examples that we can throw out there. You've got the Dumbledores. I didn't
Yeah,
want to say Dumbledores because it sounds like a knockoff of the actual doors there. Um, yeah, that was obviously, and there's no polite way of putting this. That's just somebody who passed away at the start of what was obviously going to be a much longer franchise. There was no writing this out of the books to keep it out of the movies once things changed. So that one's a bit of a straightforward one.
yeah. I think because the character hadn't been in, like, or sorry, the actor hadn't been in. It's Harris, is it?
Yes, Richard Harris.
Yeah, Richard Harris was in the first one.
Yeah,
And I don't think I think it would have been a different story if we had that version of Dumbledore in maybe 3 4 films, and then they
yeah,
had to recast. I think that would be a bigger story at the time and stuff like that. But I think after the first movie, replacing it with Michael Gambon is not as a big kind of
excuse me.
element.
Yeah,
But as you say, it's understood as a franchise, kind of thing. So
yeah, and because the books had laid the path, you knew that character wasn't going anywhere. But I want to get the obvious ones out of the way so that we can get to talking because you've got William Hurt, just things that are topical right now. Harrison Ford is about to be Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. Well, maybe not even called Thunderbolt Ross. The Thaddeus Ross, General Ross,
mm,
also Red Hulk. But it's no longer going to be William Hurt, who has done it in surprisingly in a number of movies that spans way back to the Hulk, which was called the Incredible Hulk that time. Yes, Incredible Hulk, I think. And William Hurt's passed away. Harrison Ford stepping in. You can already see in the trailer they're doing a bit of a roadie. Do you remember Terrence Howard's disappeared? In walks Don Cheadle. First thing he says is, "Deal with it." It's like I'm him now. Says it
yeah,
to Tony Stark, but also says it to the audience. It looks like in the trailer there's a little bit of a joke with the mustache, and Harrison Ford is like, "Yeah, still me the character, just me the character without the mustache." And apparently, if you shave well enough, you end up looking like Harrison Ford. So after the show's over, I'm off to the bathroom to get this stuff off my face so I can finally be handsome like Harrison Ford, Paul.
yeah. No, you're like, yeah. I think this is because they haven't established essentially things. There's already an establishment of changing characters and stuff like that, and also the great humor of us kind of going. We are accepting that we understand that we are changing the actor and stuff like that. They've done that kind of thing before. I think this one is a little bit less. Um, of an impact within the universe and stuff like that, because there's no story reason or anything like that
Yeah.
for plot wise. And they are acknowledging the actors past, and then accepting the future of this character and stuff like that. It is sad to see that William Hurt will not be playing President Thunderbolt Ross.
Good point.
His his portrayal of Thunderbolt was incredible. He
Yeah.
was a favorite of like one of the kind of like secondary kind of characters within the universe.
As someone who's not massively one of my favorite actors, he actually was one of my favorite. His portrayal was just, it was lovely. It was yummy all along, kind of undercurrents of disrespect and loathing, which he played very well. I'm kind of glad. One thing I will say is I'm glad that the changeover is happening for a Red Hulk moment, because it would be really difficult to have had seen CGI William Hurt version Red Hulk and then have to see Harrison Ford Red Hulk, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, no, that would have been a difficult one to kind of have.
Would have given the
Established and
animators
stuff.
some serious pain in the arse too.
It definitely would have. Yeah, I definitely think that. I will say that it's also one of those things where the he played a character in which he was very much used to. William Hurt played a character that was very used to dealing with the superheroes kind of thing. So I'm interested to see what and how Harrison Ford plays the character a little bit more,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But yeah, no, it's one of those elements that just it just feels kind of odd. But once again, established reasons and every like as in they're accepting and not shying away from us and going, yeah, this is what's happening and stuff like that. I do want to acknowledge also that I was wrong. Richard Harris did play Dumbledore in the first two movies,
That was
rather than the first one. Just to go back on that, but yeah, I agree. It would have been a more difficult time to have him as a main character, and then main character is within a movie, and then have to reestablish the actor in the next one, kind of thing. But it's one of those sad moments as well, that you want William Hurt to also continue on as the character and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
at least this is the least turbulent way that the character can keep going.
Well, I had frozen and hadn't realised it, so I just fixed that just in time to come back to moving my lips. But I was nodding along politely. Trust me, I wasn't off making tea. It wasn't a ruse. I think we really want to get into the meat of it, Paul. But there's from Gen V, and I apologise, I do not want to get his name wrong. It's Chance Perdomo, I think is the correct pronunciation. I don't know much of his work, but I do remember him in Gen V. He passed away of a motorcycle accident. They're not going to recast. From what I remember of Gen V, there isn't necessarily, it's not a character that they can't move away from. But I think that's one of those ones where this was a new show in kind of, it's the extended boys universe. And I think if somebody said to me, and from what I can read about it, there's just a feeling that they don't want to. Nobody as part of the production wants to recast. So I say, you know what, that's more their business than mine, because there seems to be some serious emotional overtones. He was quite a young man, and I think maybe a lot of people just feel a certain way about this, and they're at the start of their story rather than at the end.
This is an interesting one because from a respect standpoint and production, like I definitely agree. I agree that we should honor essentially like his memory and also which is the wishes of the cast and crew and production and everybody who don't wish to um recast because of the tragedy that was a passing of a young person. My thing from plot wise, once again, I'm bringing in the plot wise kind of thing as devil's not devil's advocate, but kind of
Well, that's quite right to do so.
selfishness. That character was quite important, and also he had he had really good established relationships with it, plot points with his relationships with other characters within the show. That it is a pity that his story will not continue.
I get you on
Um,
that.
yeah, but obviously, I would much hurt be, I would much feel, I'd feel better to be just like, I don't get to see that character continue, but we get to respect the wishes of
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
who knew him personally, kind of thing.
Well, Paul, I think we want to check out what people are saying in the comments down below. I'm just going to throw Anton Yelchin on screen because there's a future thing to talk about. But the comments are saying he was in the first two. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I did check to see if John and William Hurt were related. They're not. Yeah, Brian, I think there's certain people that you end up just checking those things. And I remember checking that years ago. Good point by Paul. How do other cast members deal with a new face in a familiar role? Yeah, it's chemistry is important as much as anything else on a movie or TV set sometimes, but also like we were just talking about, there's everything in a production, particularly when new groups of people are getting together to create a whole new something. It's extremely complex and emotional interpersonal relationships all across the board. Paul, Star Trek is going to reboot or come back at some stage. If they come back, I want to throw a hypothetical at you and the audience, so get your answers in there in the comments. If the Chris timeline comes back, let's say maybe Chris Pine, John Cho, Zoe Saldana, which she's probably not going to ever want to come back because she's winning awards and stuff now. Zachary Quinto, he'll want to come back, I think. Only joking, great actor, but his career didn't take off the same way as some of the others. If that comes back,
Yeah.
what do you do with Chekhov? Because that's Anton Yelchin played Chekhov, was made as part of that crew, made that role his own. What do you do?
So this is one of these other things that I'd have to respect the wishes of essentially the cast and crew and stuff like that. Do they want? They were very honorable in Star Trek Beyond with the mentions at the end. Essentially, the eulogy at the end of Lost Friends, kind of thing was a big, huge. I feel send off of of the character, and also not of the character. Sorry, apologies. I definitely think that it was more. That is where you were more feeling that the cast were speaking rather than the characters were speaking, kind of thing, through them. And I do believe that would feel, I would feel a lot better for a recast then, than there would be if essentially Star Trek Beyond happened and then suddenly Star Trek, the next generation, future thing kind of happened, and they immediately recast. I would feel a little bit worse on the recasting in that fashion, kind of thing. But I think because the cast had their essentially eulogy within the end of Star Trek Beyond, I have a lesser feeling from the actors' point of view rather than the character.
Well, I want to make sure that I didn't get what you were saying wrong, but I think, and I'll say what I'm thinking. You can tell me if it matches with what you were just saying. If the Chris Pine cast came back, so if the existing, what's it called, the Kelvin timeline now? What are they calling it now?
The J.J. Abrams line.
Yeah, the J.J. Abrams timeline. If they were to come back, post Star Trek Beyond, whatever way they want to pick it up, if all the cast were coming back, I would understand them saying, Chekhov just didn't rejoin. He stayed off wherever. He just didn't. He's not going with us on this mission. And maybe, introduce the new person to the seat. Have your lovely moment. We'll all feel it. They'll all feel it. That's cool. But if you're starting Star Trek up again and you're doing the Kirk crew, and you're starting again, you're creating your own new splinter, or you're recasting everybody, then you recast Chekhov for sure, because you're recasting everybody else anyway.
Yeah. So when you're doing a complete reboot, I don't think there's any issue with essentially recasting. I think my thing is if you have two options. To me, you would have two options of writing Chekhov out, of the next couple of movies, or if you were to recast it, I would feel okay because at the end of Star Trek Beyond, it did feel that that eulogy was actually for what you goes Anton,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that's where I'd fit within it. But yeah,
Well, then
no problem with the reboot.
will we ask the bigger question because we've only got we got just over a minute to go, I think. So I'm going to suggest that we close out on that. So Paul, I'm going to ask the big question to you and everybody at home. There is no simple answer, or is there? Does anybody out there want to be brave enough to say, no, I have a yes/no answer that applies across the board? Because Paul, I'm guessing you're agreeing with me on this, that it's also very situational and in a case by case.
Definitely, I definitely think so. I don't see the reason that it would just be a defining no or yes, kind of thing for all.
So are you happy to leave it there, Paul?
Yeah.
Then I'd like to thank
Um,
everybody for joining and commenting. Sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, which is one of the comments or at the start was about the passing of director David Lynch. Um, Although we don't generally comment on passings of actors and directors and stuff like that, David Lynch was just a pinnacle moment that we were going to say, like,
Okay,
we're sad
yeah.
to see
And
that.
unfortunately, we're getting close on time, so I'm just going to say yes. David Lynch, keep going, man. Wherever you are now, you created some great works. And from us, I'd love to say thanks everybody for joining. I've been Patrick,
I've been Paul.
and we've been Here's Out, and we will see you next time. Okay. Caught it just in time.